concern. But you walk by like you never heard. You could bring down my level of concern. Just need you to tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. I need you to tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. Need you to tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. I need you to tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. Need you to tell me we're alright. Tell me we're okay. Need you now. I need you now. 'Cause I told you my level of concern.
What? Okay.
All right, everybody. We're ready to get started for this afternoon. Not close enough? Better? So before we get started this afternoon, I have a reminder that you need to fill out the sheets for the education credit as water managers. Julie has those out at the registration desk. And then after you get them filled out, get them back to Julie. The next item on our list of things to do here is Jack Dwyer with the North Dakota Water Resource Districts Association will be giving us an update on the legislative and interim preparation for the 2025 legislative session. I asked Jack what I'm supposed to say when to introduce him, and he said, whatever Julie says, and she didn't give me anything, so Jack, you're on your own. Jack has been our executive director of the Water Resource Boards for the last several years, so Jack, come on up. Social hours coming soon.
Oh, sure. All right. Thanks, Harold. So I'll be giving a brief update on some of the policy issues that we've been working on since the end of the last session here in 2023. So my first topic is going to be joint boards, and I don't know if anybody attended the December Water Convention. Sean Fredericks and I gave a more in-depth presentation about joint boards and Senate Bill 2372. So I'll touch on that today briefly. So I know a lot of you serve on water resource districts or work with water resource districts. Water resource districts authorities under North Dakota statutes are typically confined to their exterior boundaries. So 61-16.1-09 lists a lot of the authorities that a water resource board has, and they specifically state in those authorities that they have those authorities within their district. Now, there's a couple exceptions. First of all, water resource districts can acquire property, a lot of times for real estate interests, easements that are necessary to construct their projects, and they can do that based on the plain language of the North Dakota Century Code within their district or outside the boundaries of their district. Another exception to the rule is that water resource districts can assess lands outside of their boundaries. Now, the basis for that is an Attorney General's opinion, and according to that Attorney General, he said, water management to be effective cannot stop at county lines. Now, that makes sense, but there's not, plain statutory authority for that. And so I think, I have concerns that if this was challenged in court, the Supreme Court might not follow that Attorney General's opinion. So when we talk about joint boards, we're talking about, water resource districts, cooperation or coordination with neighboring counties Individual water boards already have statutory obligations to meet and work with their neighbors. 61-16.1-10 lines out those duties. Water resource boards are supposed to twice each year meet the other water resource boards within their common river basin and overall just cooperate with their neighbors. A lot of times, in order to work well together, as you all know, our water resource districts form joint boards under the statutory authority in 61-16.1-11, and that gives the water boards the ability to enter into joint powers agreements. Now, there's two basic types of joint boards. There's the basin-focused joint boards, Devils Lake, Missouri, Red River, Souris River, Upper Cheyenne. Those are the most active basin-wide joint boards. And then we have a number of projects-focused joint boards, and those would be where 2 or 3 counties, most of the time 2 or 3 counties will enter into a joint powers agreement to focus on maybe 1, 2, or 3 projects that are for a watershed that spans those 2 or 3 counties. So, Senate Bill 2372, one of the reasons that Senate Bill 2372 was dropped in the pile, was submitted to the legislature, was what the prime sponsor had been to a watershed district meeting in Minnesota and felt like watershed management or having our water resource districts formed along watershed boundaries as opposed to political boundaries was a better fit. So that was the initial draft of the bill. It was basically to create watershed districts that covered each inch of the state of North Dakota, which would be quite a big undertaking. The initial bill draft didn't do away with water resource districts, so it really just added another political subdivision, and it had the same exact powers and duties of water resource boards. So, maybe it wasn't a completed thought, and of course, a number of you water resource district managers wanted to, live within our existing framework. So, I guess we can talk about what's going well with our existing structure. Number one, we have the administrative convenience of working within a county or a county boundary. So what I'm talking about is a lot of times a water board utilizes a county employee to serve as their secretary. They have their meetings in the county courthouse. Their tax bills for the water resource board are included in the county tax bills. So there's just a lot of administrative convenience with having our water resource districts formed along those county boundaries. Another thing that water resource district managers like about our existing framework is just the years of operation that we have. So all of our projects that are in existence that were locally sponsored by water resource boards, those water resource boards have easements, they have property, maintenance levies, everything's working. So we don't have to retitle anything, or have a lot of administrative work to change over from, say, the Ward County Water Resource Board to the, Mouse River Joint Board. If you look at the bill, when we get into 2372, the basins that were named in that bill are very large. Basically it included Missouri River Basin. Well, that's a huge area. Our existing structure, a county is a good size for a water resource district to manage. It's not too big, it's not too small. And then a lot of times our system's working. So the joint boards that, where water management is necessary across political boundaries, a lot of times it's happening with the creation and use of joint boards. I guess what's not working well with our current system. So it's not a perfect system, having watershed boundaries cross political boundaries. One issue there are several, I guess, different instances in the state where assessments stop at a county line. So there's a legal drain, there's upstream benefits, but because of lack of cooperation whenever the drain is formed, the assessments end abruptly at that county line. And so the county in which the project lies is, picking up the burden of their neighbors that benefit from the projects. So we have a situation down in the southern part of the state where one county, there's an old drain, and the benefits for that drain span county lines, and the county in which the project sits decided to bill their upstream county that receives benefits but wasn't involved with the initial vote or the initial creation of the drain. The drain is over 100 years old. Well, even though we have an Attorney General's opinion that says that North Dakota water resource districts can assess lands that benefit from a project, even if those lands are outside of the boundaries of the county, the upstream county that's received those bills has basically not acknowledged them and refuses to pay for them. And probably the way to enforce it would be some sort of writ of mandamus, and it would be a pretty challenging lawsuit procedurally. The other thing that's not going well with our existing system is water management across political boundaries. So let's say I'll give you an example. There's a couple counties in the eastern part of the state. The upstream county in which a legal drain exists, has an operating plan. It was a drain of statewide significance, so they have a drain permit with an operating plan. They operate that drain in accordance with their operating plan. However, there's downstream development that's taken place, and also there's some dams that I guess are posing some safety hazards downstream. And downstream, they're feeling like they're very wet when the upstream county is turning on their pumps. And so I know they asked me, why does the guy at the top of the hill get to push the button? And so there's an example of water management, not being successful across political boundaries. So Senate Bill 2372 started out as a bill to create watershed districts, maybe eventually to replace individual water resource districts that are formed along county lines. However, it was amended, and the bill that actually passed has two substantive sections, and I'll talk about them both. So Section 1, previous to Senate Bill 2372, water resource districts could enter into joint joint powers agreements under the statute we just looked at. However, it's not mandatory. Senate Bill 2372 creates a mandate that all water resource districts in the Red River, James River, Mouse River, Missouri River, and Devil's Lake drainage basins shall become a member of those basin-wide boards that we looked at. Section 3 of that bill provides a dispute resolution process when one county wants to create a new project that spans county lines and the neighboring county won't participate. So in that scenario, what happens is the water board that wants to take on the project will provide notice to the joint board in which the two counties exist, and the joint board will step in and basically conduct the project. They'll send out all the notices, conduct the landowner vote. If the vote passes, the joint board will be the local project sponsor. So there's a few reasons why Senate Bill 2372 has not been successful in achieving the results of, addressing the problems that we talked about. Number one, we're talking about massive watershed areas. Number two, there's just some inefficiencies, and I'll give you some examples. So Sheridan County. Sheridan County is in the upper watersheds of the Missouri River, the Mouse River, the James River, and the Cheyenne River. So under Senate Bill 2372, they would have to become a member of 4 different joint boards. And those joint boards, because they are pretty much high and dry, they don't need a lot of involvement. And so they already, don't have a lot of activity in their county to begin with, and now they have to send their water managers to 4 different joint boards, and pay attention. We can talk about the Mouse River project. Mouse River project is sponsored by the Service River Joint Board as the local project sponsor. The Service River Joint Board is made up of 4 counties: Renville, McHenry, Ward, and Bottineau, and the city of Minot. And it's conducting a flood control project that helps the main stem of the Mouse River. Based on Senate Bill 2372, we need to have Divide, I think, parts of Divide, Burke, maybe parts of Montreal. I don't think I have the map in my presentation, but there would be parts of Sheridan County, and then east of Bottineau, Rolette County, I think. So all of those counties that don't really maybe benefit from the project the Service River Joint Board is working on would have to become a member of the Service River Joint Board. The other thing is that funding is not equal. If we don't have willing participants, under Century Code, we have the ability to raise an additional 2 mills for each joint board. However, the county commission does not have to agree to do that. So if a water resource district joins the joint board, it's still up to a county commission to basically voluntarily contribute to that joint board. Another problem is that we have joint boards who need willing participants in order to get funding. They're going to step in and serve as the arbiter and upset one of 2 counties, and so potentially hurt our our membership in those joint boards. And then it's only applicable to the new assessment projects. So for the two existing case studies that we talked about, Senate Bill 2372 would have no impact on those as far as having a dispute resolution process. So, after thinking about this quite a bit, I think then this is a different proposal or different, conclusion that we had back in December. Our conclusion that we had back in December was to mandate participation in a joint board only when there's a project or a reassessment or a reconstruction that impacts those particular counties. However, that becomes very complicated, based on the drain, based on the watershed. So rather than mandate participation in joint boards, I think our suggestion is to repeal any mandate to enter into a joint powers agreement or become a member of a joint board. Second of all, clearly define in statute water resource districts' ability to assess across political boundaries. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, create some sort of arbitration process or dispute resolution process over assessments or water management for individual joint boards when they're not getting along with their neighbors. And I think the reason that that would be helpful is because water resource boards would, I think there would be concern that they would be subject to an arbiter's decision if they can't come to a resolution. If it has to go to the end of an arbitration proceeding, they would have to live with whatever decision was made for them, and that would provide encouragement for them to willingly join a joint board. So we don't have language written up for this yet, but the Water Resource District Board last night, I guess, adopted a resolution in support of this proposal. And so I guess we'll see where it goes. Does anyone have any questions about joint boards before I move on? Hearing none. All right, so the water resource some folks from the water resource districts have been working with the Department of Water Resources staff to come up with some changes in policy that we think would be helpful for water. The Department of Water Resources has provided 3 different bills as part of its red tape reduction initiative, and we think they're good ideas. And so we've been working with the department for over the last year, meeting once every couple of months, and I guess we can talk about the bills that they've come up with. They have a bill that deals with stream crossing determinations, one that deals with water course determinations, and then one that deals with flowage easements for surface drain permits. So to talk about the stream crossing determination bill, currently, you can see with the language that was deleted, when there's a highway that crosses a water course or a waterway, a majority of the landowners in the area that's affected, or if requested by the county commission, a township, or a water resource district, the Department of Water Resources will calculate the design discharge for that crossing. And then the road authority under statute has to install a culvert or bridge of sufficient capacity to permit the water to flow freely and unimpeded through the culvert or under the bridge, based on the design discharge that was calculated by the Department of Water Resources. That's how it works now. Let me go. And the proposal here is to have the road authorities, basically do away with the Department of Water Resources doing the initial calculation for stream crossings. So what this proposal would do is basically just say, anytime there's a stream crossing and a highway, the crossing must be designed to meet stream crossing standards prepared by the department and the Department of Water Resources. And instead of being the initial designer, Section 3 would be added that would allow the department to serve in an appellate capacity, so that if there is an aggrieved party based on the local road authority's design, the Department of Water Resources would then do the calculation after there's somebody that disagrees with that local road authority's determination. So what this does basically is gets the Department of Water Resources out of the business of doing the first calculation for all the road authorities in the state, and frees up their staff to do work on other things. They're still there if we need them. So, does anyone have any questions on this bill before we move on? All right. So we'll talk about watercourse determinations. This is a similar concept here right now when there's a question about whether or not a water feature is a watercourse or something less than a watercourse. The Water Resource Board can ask the Department of Water Resources to do a watercourse determination, where the Department of Water Resources will investigate the site and compare it with their guidance and determine whether or not a watercourse exists. And the idea here is that the local Water Resource Board, if this proposal passes, the local Water Resource Board would use its own water resource engineer to make that determination. Instead, the Department of Water Resources serves, again, in an appellate role when there's an aggrieved party. So if somebody doesn't believe that there's a watercourse and the local water resource district says there is, then they can reach out to the Department of Water Resources for an appeal. Again, freeing up staff for the Department of Water Resources. Are there any questions before I move on? All right. The last red tape reduction bill that was submitted by the Department of Water Resources is to eliminate flowage easements as a requirement anytime, when there's a surface drain permit and the water board investigates the permit and the investigation shows that the proposed drainage will flood or adversely affect lands of downstream landowners. Currently, water boards have to obtain, or the applicant will have to obtain flowage easements from downstream landowners. What this bill does is it allows flexibility. So if those downstream impacts are mitigated, the water board does not need to obtain flowage easements. And so I guess the idea here is that if there's an applicant who has a project and provides mitigation for downstream impacts, but you still have a downstream landowner who won't sign something, when you have a Hatfield and McCoy situation, progress can still be made. So the reason I believe that the Department of Water Resources submitted this, because a lot of times this is a local issue that affects water boards and not the state. But the state indicated that for those large regional drains, that where we need regional drain permits, it allows that permitting to continue on. So, are there any questions on the any of the three bills that I just talked about? All right, so I'll talk about the Drain 11 case. In the fall of 2023, there was a Supreme Court decision that was issued because of the Sargent County Drain 11 case. And that ruling held that well, let me just back up a little bit. Currently, when there's an assessment drain, the local water boards have the ability to raise $4 per acre annually to fund the maintenance of that drain. Historically, water boards have been, building up cash using that maintenance levy, and then when they need to, say reconstruct something that needs to be reconstructed, it's past its service life, they'll use that cash on hand. They'll borrow against their $4 per acre levy, which can be obligated for up to 6 years. And then they, if they have cost share from the state, basically take those funds and use it to provide that maintenance. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, Jack, I don't mean to interrupt. Can you go back to the previous one that deals with sheet water and downstream impacts, please?
Yep.
So, how does that, when you're dealing with an extraterritorial area and there's sheet water impacts coming downstream from new development that's supposedly been mitigated for that purpose, how does this come into play?
Is a drain permit required?
Well, that's where it gets kind of tricky because it's been said that one that wasn't required, even though the threshold exceeds the 80-acre threshold. But the contention was is that the stormwater management plan. The stormwater. Can you hear? The contention was is that the stormwater management plan mitigated the downstream sheet water impacts, which clearly, in the instance that I'm thinking of, has not been the case. It's actually exacerbated it as best we can tell. So what I'm getting at essentially is the development occurred within the city, the impacts are inside the 2-mile ET, but the jurisdiction of the Water Resource Board. How would this impact what that might look into the future as far as permitting and such?
Yeah, good question. So, if it's most of those developments that are, within city don't seek drain permits. Am I right? So this would only be applicable when a drain permit is required. So when a drain permit is required, and it's determined by the Water Resource Board that there's going to be downstream impacts. And I think the language is, will flood or adversely affect lands or downstream landowners. Right now, water resource boards have to make sure that there's flowage easements from impacted landowners. So what this does is deletes that requirement. Instead, if the applicant has, say, some sort of, like a detention pond, water board, if they believe that the impacts are mitigated, they can still issue a permit even if a downstream landowner refuses to sign a flowage easement. So, I guess when you're talking about development, most developments aren't permitted. So I don't know if it would really be applicable in that situation?
They're not permitted because essentially, if it meets a certain threshold, there's a stormwater management plan required, and that should mitigate for any downstream concerns.
One more time, Jason?
So if the development meets a threshold that's required a stormwater management plan, and that's deemed to be sufficient for the purposes of the development, after it exceeds the 80-acre threshold, or even if it doesn't, that's basically what you're saying, is that because there's a stormwater management plan, it's been mitigated through that plan, there's no concern for downstream impacts, even if they're proven.
Right, right. I think so. I mean, I think if there's a development that has a stormwater management plan that requires a drain permit, under this proposal, they wouldn't require flowage easements. But I don't think a lot of those developments within cities aren't doing drain permits, are they? So,
So then the water district's screwed.
I,
Or on the license, really,
right,
dealing with the issues associated with it.
right. There should still be a cause of action for downstream landowners that have damage, even if there's a permit. But, you know, water resource boards don't typically get into drain permitting for developments. So, as I was explaining, Sargent County, Drain 11, Sargent County used their funds on hand, they used some CASHA from the state, and they obligated their district, they bonded against their 6-year maintenance levy at $4 per acre to come up with the funds that were necessary to reconstruct a segment of Drain 11. And some landowners challenged. They actually were getting condemned for right-of-way, and they challenged the legality of the project. The Supreme Court of North Dakota said, under our current century code, you can't obligate the district for more than 6 years, and that includes funds on hand if you've raised those funds through that maintenance levy. So in other words, you can't use funds on hand and borrow against the 6 years. That you have to reduce the total. You can't obligate the district for more than the 6-year maintenance levy at $4, and you have to consider the funds on hand. So that was a reduction based on years of practice in water boards' ability to maintain those legal drains. The $4 per acre was most recently increased back in 2013, and as you know, the cost of maintaining drains has increased substantially since 2013. So there's a group of agricultural leaders in the state, a number of legislators and some commodity groups that have been meeting about some different priorities. And one of the policy items that they want to tackle is to increase water boards' ability to maintain their drains. And so what they're thinking about doing, what they decided to do, is to propose a bill to raise the maintenance levy from $4 to $8 per acre, and to increase the maximum levy period from 6 years to 10 years. And so probably not a great time to ask for increased property taxes, but that was the plan, and to see where it lands. And are there any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
At the beginning, why was not the Upper Cheyenne included in the basins?
I don't know why. What is the makeup of the State Water Commission? Do you have an Upper Cheyenne State Water Commissioner? Or is it Upper Red, Lower Red, Devil's Lake? Does it correspond with the State Water Commission itself? Upper Red and Lower Red? You know, I guess going back to the session, when the language came out, you know, I guess we asked that we continue to work on it. We just didn't think it was ready. And the legislature's response was, we got to pass something to make progress. So I'm not sure. Good question.
Since they're low, the issue of raising $48 and, for somebody who's worked on these projects, that's very prudent. But there's also an assessment per valuation, for $500 valuation. Since you're opening that door, is there not maybe look at that assessment dollar or two?
What is it, $2 per $500 evaluation? Yeah, good question. I think it probably should be addressed.
You know, just looking at it from the perspective of need, you know, that has gone up in 2013. You know, if you're looking at the other side too, they probably should come concurrently. Last time they did not, which created some issues, but again, you're asking for more money, so but it opens that door because the statute's going to be open.
Yep. Good point, Mike. Anything else? All right. See you back here at 3 o'clock. Oh, down at the other end.
Let's thank Jack for a presentation. I want to thank all of our speakers today. We had a pretty good lineup of people, and we are pretty well informed as to what some of the areas that we've been looking at. Couple of announcements. The North Dakota Water Users Association Board of Directors will be meeting tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. And that's in the boardroom that we had our meeting in last night for the water resource boards. If you're signed up for the tour tomorrow, the buses will load from the lobby at 8:45, and the buses will leave promptly at 9 o'clock. So don't be late. And at 3 o'clock, we have the Mouse River State Water Commission Commissioner-hosted basin meeting, and that will be in the Sunrise Room, which is way down at the end of the hall, way down, not next door, but way down by the old breakfast room. So we encourage everybody to take part in that if you get a chance. After the basin meeting, there will be a social, and that will be in the room right next to this. So come back to the social, and with that, we will conclude this portion of the summer meeting. And thank everyone for attending, and drive safe, and we will see you this fall or in December for the winter meetings. So, thanks.